People are underrating this year's wide receiver class. It might not have the top-end talent of last year's draft with Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze all being drafted in the top 9 picks, but it is incredibly deep, and people are sleeping on this class as a whole. So I'm going to go over my top 10 wide receivers in the 2025 NFL draft class, starting with the top, because the back end of this class is where it really starts to get interesting. And before we get into the rankings, make sure you subscribe for more draft content, and I've actually grouped these wide receivers into tiers, so let me explain what they are. This first tier is wide receiver 1 potential. I think the guys in this tier can be a team's primary receiving threat. They might not end up being that because it depends who is already on their team. Think T. Higgins being the wide receiver 2 behind Jamar Chase, but they definitely have that potential. The second tier is what I call wide receiver 1.5s. These guys aren't going to be the wide receiver 1 on their team, whether that's due to athletic or physical limitations, or just how they're utilized in the offense, but they are still damn good. Think Ladd McConkey or Michael Pittman or even someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown. None of those guys are true wide receiver 1s, but they can comfortably put up over 1,000 yards every season. The third tier is the hesitancy tier. For one reason or another, guys in this tier I'm just not quite as high on compared to consensus. They have traits I like, and in the right role and in the right offense they could definitely produce, but I just have nagging doubts about them. The third tier is what I call the, you know what? Hell yeah tier. These receivers all have their flaws in some way, whether that's athletic or physical, or they just have an odd projection to the next level. But frankly, I don't care. I think the receivers in this tier can be high-level NFL players and can be those late-round gems, a bit like Terry McLaurin or Stephon Diggs. My first ranked wide receiver is Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona, and I don't know when it became cool to not rate this guy. The agenda that people have against him is absolutely crazy to me, and I think it's because he's fundamentally being misunderstood as a prospect. He's a 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver who doesn't play like it in the best way and worst way possible, and I'll explain what that means. But first of all, the production is absolutely there. No other wide receiver in this class has put up back-to-back 1,300 plus yard seasons, and also doing that in a not great offense, particularly this year. McMillan is a yards after the catch and missed tackles forced machine. In 2 years at Arizona, he has 967 yards after the catch, 430 this year and 537 last year. That is just behind Malik Neighbors in terms of career yards after the catch, which you can see by this graph on the screen. And you can see another graph here now of his missed tackles forced over his career, which again are some absolutely fantastic numbers at his size. And fundamentally, he moves so well for his size. Yeah, he's not a sharp cutter like Malik Neighbors, but I think he is a fluid route runner. And because of that, he's a threat at all 3 levels of the field. He's incredibly versatile, he can stay on for every down, and he's got great ball skills. He's got a fantastic catch radius, which is absolutely massive given his frame. So he doesn't play like a 6'4" wide receiver in the best way possible, in the sense that he plays more like a 6', 200-pound wide receiver with his yards after the catch and tackle breaking ability. But the flip side is also true with McMillan. He's not that traditional X wide receiver. He's not Mike Evans, so he doesn't play like a 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver in the worst way possible. He doesn't use his height very well. He's got a good contested catch percentage, sure, 49.5% on his career, but you would expect more from someone of his size and build. He doesn't use his height or his strength to box out defensive backs like a basketball player or just moss them at the catch point. And he's also got a limited release package off the line of scrimmage, which means that with his limited long speed, if he doesn't put a move on defensive backs at the line of scrimmage, they can stay in his hip pocket for most of the route, and he's struggling to create separation in the route itself. And again, he doesn't really have that long speed to break away from coverage. I think in particular the drive portion of his route, when he's the first kind of like 5 yards, is really lacking explosiveness, which I think he does have. And I think with coaching, he can improve that. But fundamentally, my pro comparison for Tetairoa McMillan is Nico Collins. I think if you give this man the CeeDee Lamb route tree of spending decent amount of snaps in the slot and having in-breaking routes where he can have those yards after the catch possibilities and get the ball in his hands and just let him produce. I don't think you should overthink the production, the physical traits, or the yards after the catch ability with McMillan. I think he is such a fantastic player and my clear wide receiver 1. Travis Hunter, the wide receiver cornerback hybrid, is my wide receiver 2. And this guy is such a nuanced route runner. He's so good at attacking the defensive back's blind spot. He uses head fakes and tempo changes and subtle moves. And I think that all comes from his ability to play cornerback as well. He knows exactly what a cornerback hates when trying to guard a wide receiver, and he implements that brilliantly. He's got really high game IQ. I think the highest in this class, frankly. He's so good at finding the soft spots in zone coverage. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown-esque, I would say. And again, that comes from his defensive understanding by playing on the defensive side of the ball. He has fantastic ball skills. And I'm talking about for a wide receiver, not for a cornerback, because we all know that cornerbacks can't catch. But his circus catch ability and his concentration levels while making those catches are just absolutely elite. And he's so agile. I think he's got elite agility, even by NFL receiving standards. And that will 100% play at the next level. Now, yes, he does have quite a light frame, only 188 pounds, which is 20th percentile for a wide receiver. And that's the downside of him playing both positions, because I think if he was to commit to wide receiver full time, he would put a bit more mass on his frame and be able to hold up a bit more against those more physical hits, and also be able to play more physically. I think because he is on the lighter side, he can be physically overwhelmed by more aggressive defenders, and particularly against linebackers when coming over the middle. I saw a play where he gets absolutely rocked, completely rerouted, because he runs straight into a linebacker who doesn't move, and he doesn't have that high top end speed, which I think you're ideally looking for. But the best comparison I have for Travis Hunter is Garrett Wilson. I think they win in the same way, they play the game in the same way. That agility, those ball skills and playmaking ability means that even with the lighter frame, he could be a wide receiver 1. But I do want him to play cornerback full-time and play part-time wide receiver. He definitely wants to at least play both, so that probably means he won't actually play that wide receiver 1 role in the league. But as I said at the beginning with the tiers, it just means he has that potential too. And I think Travis Hunter definitely has that wide receiver 1 potential. Now we're going to get a bit controversial with my wide receiver 3, my final receiver in this top tier, and that is Jayden Higgins from Iowa State. Now he does not have the floor the other two guys have whatsoever. He undeniably is more of a projection, but I'm going to bank on the high-end flashes I saw on his tape, and I do fundamentally believe that this guy could be a wide receiver 1 in the league. Maybe not immediately, but in like 3-4 years time, a bit like the projection we saw with Nico Collins, how it took him a while to come out and properly emerge as that wide receiver 1. But I think that Higgins can be a true X wide receiver. He's got the height and the physicality at 6'4" and 214 pounds to hold up there. He's not just a power slot like I think a lot of people are projecting him. I think he moves really well for his size. He's got a surprisingly good release package against press. He's got that surprising agility, and he's also a really good route runner. I think there's no wasted movement. He's got good footwork. He's good at finding the soft spots in between zone coverage, and he's got really good ball skills. 2 drops on the season, a 58% contested catch rate. He can go up and get it in a goal line fade situation. I absolutely love the potential getting with Higgins. Now, yes, he also has his weaknesses. Obviously, he does have the top end speed, but I think he lacks explosiveness off the line of scrimmage to really burn past defenders. He also can let balls into his frame, which allows defenders to make a play easier on the ball. And I think he needs to inherently get better at winning down the sideline and being that downfield out wide threat to be that X receiver and not just the power slot. And I think he also needs to try and give a bit more after the catch. Yeah, he can shake a tackle here and there, but I'd like to see that being improved at the next level. But importantly, the context for him winning more down the field, by the sideline, is that 29% of all of his targets this year were fade routes. 42 of those were thrown at him, but only 16 were catchable, and he caught all 16. So I think in a better quarterback situation with an NFL level quarterback, I think we could see that side of his game improve from day one. And I think his floor, yes, is that power slot receiver, but I think his ceiling is that Nico Collins-esque X wide receiver. It takes him a bit of time to get there, but I believe in that potential. Now here we have my tier 2s, the wide receiver 1.5s, and my wide receiver 4 is Kyle Williams from Washington State. I think he's one of the most explosive wide receivers in this class. Yes, he's lacking the physical tools, which is what I mentioned as the prerequisite for being in this class, but man, this guy can play. He has, I think, the best release package in this class. He is absolutely untouchable at the line of scrimmage. I've compared him to Neo dodging bullets in bullet time. He is a big play threat. He's the the only wide receiver in this class with 8+ yards after the catch per reception and more than 10 contested catches. He also has 21 missed tackles forced and a contested catch rate of 62.5%, which is fantastic for someone his size. He's got really good vertical speed. He ran 21.36 miles an hour at the Senior Bowl, so that definitely checks out. You see that on his tape. And he runs really hard after the catch. He's got 590 yards after the catch. He's a threat with the ball in his hands, and he was even used as a rushing threat in the Washington State offense and scored 3 touchdowns on screens in 2024, which was the most in the FBS. So get the ball in this guy's hands and good things happen. However, he doesn't have a top tier physical calling card again, which is why he's in this tier. 5'11", 190 pounds. He did run a 4.4, but a 6.32 relative athletic score means he's just kind of an adequate athlete with adequate physical traits. And yeah, the top speed is good, but the acceleration means that he needs time to get to that top speed. But fundamentally with Kyle Williams, for me, he won't blow you away with his physical tools or his athletic traits, but he is a big play threat. He is a wide receiver who is bigger, who is greater than the sum of his parts. And I think his ability to beat press at the next level and be moved around the offensive formation and be that big play threat is absolutely going to translate at the next level. My wide receiver 5 is Jaylin Noel from Iowa State. Jayden Higgins, his teammate. It's a pair of Iowa State wide receivers in my top 5. He is so explosive off the line of scrimmage. He has a track background and you can absolutely see it. I think he is an absolutely fantastic deep threat. He has a cut up of his 15 yard receptions or more, and it's over 3 minutes, and that's just from this year. He understands how to get open down the field. He's splitting safeties. He's not just running past them, but putting a move on them. He's not panicking downfield when the quarterback's about to throw the ball. He takes his time. And there's a play versus Iowa where he puts a move on the linebacker first, then stacks the linebacker and puts a move on the safety for what is a 70-yard touchdown. And it's that ability to just know how to get open deeper down the field. It's not just about outrunning the defender. And it just, I think that's going to translate immediately to the league. He's quick. He's got decisive footwork in the short area of the field. And I think he has potential to be more than just a deep threat at the next level. I think he has that short and intermediate potential as well. Now, he did run a 4.39, but I didn't quite see that play speed on his film. I don't think he had that final gear to really burn defenders when they're in phase. He wasn't really pulling away from guys unless it was because he put a move on them. If it was a foot race, they were in his hip pocket. Now, he was able to make a fantastic catch in double coverage, but nevertheless, you'd like him to be kind of pulling away from those guys. And he's not a tackle breaker. At his size, you'd like to think that he could, with the ball in his hands, break tackles and be more elusive. And he's got shorter arms, so he's not going to be a great blocker, which from the slot, offenses don't love. And he has a smaller catch radius. And he will be a majority slot player in the NFL. There's questions against press. But if I'm looking for a primary slot wide receiver in this class, I'm going to take Jaylin Noel ahead of Emeka Egbuka. Now, tier 3 is the hesitancy tier, and my wide receiver 6 is Luther Burden from Missouri. And I think the hesitancy with Burden is pretty obvious, and I think we're all kind of in agreement as to what that is. I actually really do like Burden, especially his 2023 tape. And I feel the most confident about his projection out of the other receivers in this group. Now, his strengths is that he is a playmaker. He has that kind of watered down Malik Neighbors style. He can make a first down out of nothing. He had 724 yards after the catch in 2023. That is absolutely crazy. That is more than Malik Neighbors, one of the single highest yards after the catch totals for any first round wide receiver. This year it did go down to 375, but that's still a healthy 6.8 yards after the catch per reception. And he is a modern receiver. He can be lined up anywhere in the slot, backfield, out wide, I think, even though they didn't really do that in Missouri. And he's dynamic and versatile. Now, the weaknesses and why he's in this hesitancy tier is because his 2024 tape versus 2023 tape and everything that's kind of come out with him after the season. So I do think that we can explain away quite a lot of the lack of production concerns with Bird and with the Missouri offense. I think that I know that he was targeted 13 times on slot fades in 2023. He only had 5 of those targets this year, 2 of which were catchable. So his role in the offense completely changed. He was used as the decoy, as the eye candy, and Brady Cook, the Missouri quarterback, took a pretty big step back in his play this year. He did also have a wrist injury. 84.7% of Luther Burden's snaps are in the slot. Does that limit him then to a majority slot role in the NFL? Obviously, Malik Neighbors doesn't need to be there. He's got the agility and the ability to break press and be that out wide guy. I'm not quite sure if Burden does. He might have it. We just haven't really been able to see it with his usage at Missouri. I think his route running, despite him being that kind of Malik Neighbors style of receiver, isn't as good as you would think. I think he needs to show more separation ability. He lacks sharp cuts in his route. His footwork's not as good as I think it needs to be. And he's not a willing blocker from the slot either, which is going to be a problem for offenses again. And for me, a big reason about this hesitancy is the fact that Burden did not test well at the combine, and it wasn't just a slow 40 time. He was testing slow during the drills on the data tracking there as well. And I think at a high end, he compares to DJ Moore, but as a bottom line, I can't really decide where I stand on Burden. It really wouldn't shock me if in 3 years' time, we're saying we can't believe that Burden fell to, let's say, 20 or 25 or whatever. But it also wouldn't shock me if in 3 years' time we're saying, oh my God, Luther Burden was drafted 15 overall. That was a massive miss. So that's the thing with Burden for me, is I'm not quite sure where I lie on the Luther Burden truther scale. I'm putting myself somewhere in the middle, but there's a bit of hesitancy there for me. My wide receiver 7 is Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, and I don't really have any concerns or hesitancy about Egbuka as a prospect in terms of his strength. It's more about his ceiling. So he's a veteran receiver at a blue blood school. He had 1,151 yards in 2022. He's got really good hands, only 12 drops over 4 years. He's not afraid to go over the middle. He protects the ball in the air with his body. He's versatile. He also lined up in the backfield. He took handoffs, lined up in the slot, and he's really, really good against zone coverage. He is a zone cover killer. Fantastic game IQ. He has positional understanding. He knows exactly where the passing lanes are and where to get open within those. And also in the playoffs, I thought he showed good deep ball tracking ability and had nice catches down the field. Now, why Egbuka's in this hesitancy tier, though, is because he has average long speed. He doesn't really, I think, create separation versus man coverage. He's more of that kind of zone beater. He's not dynamic with the ball in his hands. I don't really know why Ohio State were giving him handoffs. He only had 6 missed tackles this year, which is 175th out of all wide receivers. And his lack of athleticism is really kind of the grouping of all of that. And I think that he has a really high floor as a slot receiver. I just don't know if he has that higher ceiling. And really, that's why he's behind the other guys. It really wouldn't shock me if Emeka Egbuka was the 3rd most productive receiver from this class this year, maybe in the 2nd, not including Travis Hunter. He will play. I don't have hesitancy about Egbuka being a good player. I do have hesitancy about him being a great one. And really, for drafting a receiver in the 1st round, I feel like you're looking for that higher ceiling than you are a lower floor. And I don't think if you can get Egbuka in the 2nd, that'd be absolutely fantastic. But I don't think you're going to be able to. So for me, it's the case of that I would almost let someone else draft him, given where I would have to take him if I wanted him. And his lack of athleticism and physical traits give him that lower ceiling, but I feel it's a really narrow range of outcomes for Egbuka as well. We kind of know exactly what type of player he's going to be, which is a really good one. Don't know about really good. People aren't going to like this, but my wide receiver 8 is Matthew Golden from Texas. I just do not see this guy as a 1st rounder. I think he's a nice Z receiver who could be a good wide receiver 2, but people are crowning him as wide receiver 1 in this class and the next Stephon Diggs, and I'm just not there with Golden whatsoever. Now, yeah, he's a good route runner. He can run a post better than almost anyone in this class. That's kind of how he rose to fame in the playoffs with his post route versus Arizona State on 4th and 8, and that route running ability has flashed with other routes too. And he's good at tracking the ball deeper down the field. But he's not going to make anyone miss. He's got very little yards after the catch ability, which I think you kind of need something in that regard from a wide receiver 1 potential that is the best receiver in this class. He struggles with physicality. I don't think he can disengage effectively from contact or play through it like other receivers in this list can. I think while he can track the ball well downfield, I think there are kind of questionable drops on his tape. He has inconsistent hands. And he offers almost nothing as a run blocker. Part of the reason why Arizona State were even in that game versus Texas is because he didn't block someone on the goal line, which resulted in the fumble. So don't get him to block anyone. And I'm kind of buying into this conspiracy theory with Golden that he didn't actually run a 4.29 because firstly, I did not see that on his tape, and I've been very vocal about that from day one. However, after doing some digging, I realized that the 40 times, even at the combine, are started by hand. And I just think it was just a bit of a mistime. Do I think he ran quickly? Yeah, sure. You don't get a 4.29 by running at what I would run. Don't get me wrong. But a 4.29, the 10th fastest 40 of all time? Absolutely not. That was nowhere on his tape whatsoever. And the fact that he didn't run again suggests potentially, now it could be, obviously, I've ran my one, I don't need to run again. But I do also think that if you were regularly running 4.29, you'd back yourself to get another, because running 4.29 and then running a 4.31 isn't really going to change anything. But I think that Golden thinks, and it's just my opinion, I don't want to besmirch anyone, just my opinion, but I do think he probably realised that he's not going to get anywhere near 4.29, so why bother running again? And fair play to him. Why would you? I'm not criticising him for that. I'm just saying what it might mean. So he's a hard player to evaluate. I think he's got the route running ability and the hands to be an effective wide receiver at the next level, but I struggle to see him being this. I can put him on any team in any role as the best wide receiver in this class, as the wide receiver one, as a wide receiver one in his own right, with limited yards after the catch ability, issues with play strength, drops, and I don't think he's actually that great an athlete. It might sound harsh. I still like Golden, just nowhere near as how other people like him. And finally, tier 3, the you know what? Hell yeah tier. And I think my wide receiver 9, Jack Bech from TCU, is the very definition of you know what? Hell yeah. I want Jack Bech on my team come hell or high water. He will fit any team, I think, and make it instantly better. He is such a useful player. He can play X wide receiver, he can be a big slot, he can even be an inline tight end. He's a plus blocker. He used to be a tight end at LSU. He's got incredibly safe hands. One drop in 2024, a 1.7% drop rate on his career, and a 61.3% career contested catch rate. That is so good. Now, he's a nuanced route runner as well. I think he's got the speed to burn flat-footed DBs, and he's got good agility and movement off the line of scrimmage and in his route. And he can play through contact really well. That's something I was just knocking Golden for. When a DB or even a linebacker wants to get physical with Bech will get physical back with him, and I will more often than not win that physicality battle. And he's also not afraid to get physical with the ball in his hands after the catch either. Now, while Bech can be a flat-footed DB, he doesn't have that long speed to, burn defensive backs regularly. He didn't run the 40 for a good reason, a bit like Golden. I'm not criticising Bech for that at all. Play to win and, play to your strengths, but he probably didn't run a 40 because he wasn't going to run a great 40. And physicality and power might not be as impactful at the next level in the NFL when everyone else is more physical and more powerful. And he's got a shorter catch radius. He is a taller prospect, but he does only have 34th percentile wingspan and only 1 year of production, only had 800 yards in 3 years before his breakout. But his pro comparison is Puka Nacua, and I really don't think that's hyperbolic to compare him to that. Not maybe in terms of Nakua's overall production, but in terms of how Nacua wins, just with toughness, physicality. He's fantastic in that McVay offense, not afraid to block and crash down on defensive ends. And I would use Bech in exactly the same way. And what you see is what you get with him. He's a Swiss Army knife kind of player. He will do whatever you need him to, and he's going to do it damn well. My wide receiver 10, and I'm planting my flag here, is Tre Harris from Ole Miss. He's a divisive wide receiver given his route tree from Ole Miss, which I'll discuss. But I think he's got it. He has alpha wide receiver 1 potential. Now, I don't feel quite as good as Harris's projection to put him in that top tier, don't get me wrong, but I think that's within a possible range of outcomes. A very thin possibility, but I do think it's there. He has the build for it at 6'2", 205 pounds. He had 5.15 yards per route run this year, which was first in the class. He had 462 yards after the catch as well. He was lined up at the backside of trips in the Ole Miss offense and was able to win there. He's a good route runner. Yes, he did run a limited route tree, which I'll talk about in his weaknesses, but I think when he wasn't running basically hitches, comebacks, or fades, he actually showed ability to run other routes. He ran a really nice post route a few times, or this post and out. I know it as a dragon. It's basically a post and then it becomes a kind of like a 15-yard out. And he also ran a really nice blaze out a few times, one particularly versus Vanderbilt, which I thought was nasty. So I think there's definitely route running potential there. He's an explosive threat. I think he always fights for extra yardage. You can see the tenacity that he plays with on his tape immediately, and I kind of fell in love with that a bit. And he's fighting for that extra yardage. He's lowering the shoulder. He can pick up, 4 or 5 yards after the catch. Sometimes he averaged 7.7 yards after the catch per reception. And he's strong at all 5 phases, at the release, the stem, the break point, the catch point, and then after the catch. And yes, we'll finally address it. It's an ugly projection from the Ole Miss offense. It always is. You can have the AJ Browns and the DK Metcalfs. You can also have the Jonathan Mingos. And I hope on that scale, Harris falls closer to those latter ones. But from Ole Miss, you never know. That definitely, there is that kind of, not bust, well, Mingo is a bust, but there is that wide range of outcomes. If Egbuka has a really thin one, I think Harris probably has the widest one in this class, to be honest with you. 70% of his routes were vertical routes or hitches. Not a great route to be running. You want a wide receiver to run most routes. Now, obviously, certain body types dictate that they can't run certain routes. You don't want DK Metcalf running a hitch, for example, but you want a few more routes in Harris's wheelhouse, definitely. And his missed tackles forced, while they're good, and his yards after the catch is good, his missed tackles actually isn't that good. So he's good in space, but he's not good at breaking those tackles, basically. He only had 10 missed tackles forced this year. And when he was winning on the backside of trips and had quite a lot of space to put a move on a defensive back, he was often not breaking that first tackle. And really, if you're going to get to that higher range of Harris's outcomes, you need him to really do that. And he's also got inconsistent hands, had a 8.3% drop rate, and that was 6.3% drop rate. And that was last year, and there was an 8.3% drop rate in his final year at LA Tech as well. And he's a questionable deep threat, I think, with that limited route tree. It's not kind of best at projecting him to that, and he wasn't that great at separating deeper down the field when he was given those potentials. But I think with Tre Harris, it really comes down to, don't overthink this. He's got the size, the length, the weight, the years of production. He ticks all the boxes. And you know what with Harris? Hell yeah. So now you can see my full wide receiver rankings and tiers. I know the Matthew Golden ranking might not go down so well, but I want to stress, all of these guys in my top 10, I would take before the end of the second round. I don't hate any of these guys. It's not that I think that Matthew Golden is undraftable. In fact, I really like all of them. That's what I was saying at the beginning of this video, is that it's a really deep wide receiver class. The fact that I had to leave out players like Jaylin Noel, Emeka, Torrey Horton shows just how deep this class is, and I like those guys as well. But let me know what you think of my rankings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there players that I need to know about that aren't in my top 10? Make sure you let me know all of your thoughts and more in the comments below. Make sure you like the video and make sure you subscribe for more draft content. I want to hit 1,000 subscribers before the draft. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. I'll see you on the next video.